My wife died 38 years ago, and I never got to mourn her, because how do you mourn somebody when the whole world thinks you're the one who killed her? They took her from me twice. The fire took her body. The state of Arkansas took my right to grieve. My name is Samuel Ray Henderson. I'm 81 years old. Been in Varner Unit down in Grady, Arkansas for 38 years. These hands used to pull cotton, used to fix a tractor engine by feel in the dark middle of harvest season. Now they shake so bad I can't hold a pencil long enough to write my own appeal letters. I owned 120 acres outside Little Rock, soybeans and cotton. My daddy's land, his daddy's before him. I reckon the state owns it now, or the bank. I stopped asking. I was a farmer. That's all I ever was. That's all I ever wanted to be. My daddy taught me to read the soil before I could read a book. I knew by smell when the rain was coming. I knew by the color of the leaves when it was time to pick. I could tell you what a field needed just by walking through it barefoot in the morning. I married Lorraine in 1971. June, little church on Route 5 outside Benton. Her daddy was a cotton man too, 3 counties over. She understood the life, understood that when I came in at dark smelling like diesel and dirt, that wasn't a complaint, that was Tuesday. We had our struggles. I ain't gonna sit here and tell you it was perfect, because it wasn't. Farming ain't kind to a marriage. You're tired all the time. You're worried about money all the time. Some years the crop comes in and you feel like a king. Some years the rain don't come and you're selling equipment just to keep the lights on. And Lorraine, she wanted more than I could give her sometimes. She wanted to travel, see the ocean. She'd cut pictures out of magazines, beaches, hotels, places I couldn't even pronounce. And I'd say, next year, Lorraine, after harvest, every year, next year, next year. We never did see that ocean. Her brother Dale lived about a mile down the road. He helped with the harvest some years. Good man, quiet, kept to himself mostly. Him and Lorraine were close. Grew up together, you know, way it is with farm families. They'd talk on the phone every night near about. I didn't mind. He was family. March 14th, 1988. I can tell you everything about that day. Every single thing. Because I've lived it 10,000 times in my head. That morning, I was fixing to drive into Little Rock for supplies. Needed hydraulic fluid for the tractor, couple bags of seed, and Lorraine asked me to pick up flour and shortening from the Piggly Wiggly. She was making a pie, pecan pie, for the church social on Sunday, pecan pie. I remember that. I left the house around 4:30 in the afternoon. Lorraine was in the kitchen. Dale was on the porch. He'd come over to help me load some fence posts that morning and stayed for supper. I told Lorraine I'd be back by 8. She said, pick up buttermilk too. You always forget the buttermilk. I always forgot the buttermilk. I drove the truck into town, hit the farm supply on Cantrell Road first, then the Piggly Wiggly. I was wearing my brown Carhartt jacket, the one with the rip on the left pocket that Lorraine kept saying she'd sew and never did. I had on my work boots, my John Deere cap. I looked like every other farmer in Pulaski County. On the way home, I stopped at the Texaco on Highway 67, filled up the truck, 1140, pump number 4. The receipt says 7:23 p.m. I paid cash, but the girl behind the counter, her name was Deidre, she was maybe 19, 20. She printed me a receipt because I asked for one. I always kept receipts. Lorraine did the books. That gas station is 45 minutes from my house. 45 minutes. I know because I've driven that road 1,000 times. The fire started at 7:15 p.m. That's what the report says, 7:15. You tell me how a man sets a fire at 7:15 and buys gas 45 minutes away at 7:23. You tell me. Because in 38 years, nobody has explained that to me. I didn't do it. I got home around 8:10. I could see the sky was orange before I turned onto the county road. Orange like sunset, but it was the wrong direction. And then the smoke. And I knew, I don't know how, but I knew before I saw it. The house was gone. Not burning. Gone. The roof had already fallen in. Fire trucks everywhere. Neighbors standing in the field across the road. And I stopped the truck in the middle of the road and I ran toward it. 2 firemen had to hold me back. I could feel the heat from 50 yards away. Lorraine and Dale were inside, both of them. The fire marshal, a man named Gerald Tunney, he ruled at arson within 48 hours. Said he found accelerant patterns in the living room. Said it was deliberate. And since I wasn't home, I became the only suspect they ever looked at. Now here's what the jury never heard. Gerald Tunney lost his fire investigation license in 1994. 6 years after my trial, he was found to have falsified reports in 6 other cases across 2 counties. 6. His methodology was called unreliable and scientifically unfounded by the State Review Board. But my conviction stands, because overturning a conviction based on discredited expert testimony requires a new hearing. And in 38 years, I have not been granted one. And the receipt from the Texaco at 7:23 p.m., my lawyer, public defender, kid barely out of law school, had 40 cases that month. He presented it. The prosecution said it was, and I remember the exact words, insufficient to establish a definitive alibi due to imprecise time of origin estimates for the fire. They said the fire could have started earlier. Could have. Maybe. Possibly. Could have. They put me away for life on could have. That was 38 years ago. 38 years. You know what 38 years takes from a man who shouldn't be here? Everything. It takes everything. The first thing they take is the funeral. I wasn't allowed to go to my own wife's funeral. I was in county lockup. They wouldn't grant leave. My lawyer asked. Judge said no. Security risk. Lorraine was buried on a Thursday, March 22nd, 1988. I was sitting in a cell 40 miles away. I couldn't put flowers on her grave. I couldn't stand next to her casket and say goodbye. I couldn't touch her hand one last time. Her mama, Miss Ruth, she organized the funeral, and she stood up in front of that church, the same church where Lorraine and I got married, and she told everybody I killed her daughter. Miss Ruth died believing that. She died in 2003, believing I burned her daughter alive. And for what? My boys. I had 2 boys. Tommy was 14, David was 11. The state put them with Lorraine's sister in Memphis. She told them their daddy set the fire. She told them that every day, every single day until they believed it. Tommy hasn't spoken to me since 1996. He was 22. He wrote me a letter. 1 page. It said, I can't do this anymore. I can't love you and hate what you did, so I'm choosing to stop. That was it. 30 years of silence since that letter. David came once, 2004. He was 27, sat across from me at the visitor table and didn't say anything for 10 minutes. Just looked at me. Then he said, did you do it? And I said, no. And he said, Mama's sister says you did. And I said, I know what she says. I'm telling you the truth. And he left. He hasn't been back. I got grandchildren I've never seen. Tommy's got 2 girls. I know their names because a cousin sends me a Christmas card some years. Emma and Grace. I don't know what they look like. I don't know if they know I exist. And the land, my daddy's land, 120 acres. I inherited it when Lorraine died because we had no will saying otherwise. The prosecution used that at trial, said I killed her for the property. I grew up on that land. I was born on that land. My daddy is buried on that land. You think I'd burn my own house down with my wife inside for 120 acres of soybeans? That land was Lorraine. Every row, every fence post, every morning I walked out the door and saw the sun come up over that east field. That was our life together. That land without her ain't nothing but dirt. I didn't do it. And for what? For what? What did any of this accomplish? Lorraine is still dead. Dale is still dead. My boys grew up without a mother and a father, and I'm sitting here, in this room, telling the same story I've told 100 times to one more person who can't do a damn thing about it. All right, let me lay this out for you because the facts matter, even if nobody wants to hear them. Fact number 1. The fire investigator, Gerald Tunney, was stripped of his credentials in 1994 for falsifying arson reports in 6 cases. 6 cases where he said the same thing he said about my house, accelerant patterns consistent with deliberate ignition. 3 of those convictions were overturned. Mine was not. Fact number 2, I have a Texaco receipt, time-stamped 7:23 p.m. from a gas station 45 minutes from my home. The fire was reported at 7:15. My lawyer presented this. The prosecution dismissed it. Nobody tested it for fingerprints. Nobody subpoenaed the gas station clerk. Nobody pulled the security footage. My lawyer didn't push it. He had 40 cases that month. Mine was number 41. Fact number 3, no accelerant was ever recovered from the site. Tunney's report says patterns consistent with Consistent with, not confirmed, not tested and verified. Consistent with, you know what else is consistent with accelerant patterns? A kerosene heater tipping over in a wood frame farmhouse built in 1947 with no fire suppression, which is exactly what we had in the living room. A kerosene heater that Lorraine used every winter because the central heating barely worked. I've filed 9 appeals. 9. Everyone denied. The last one, 2019, was denied because the court said I failed to demonstrate newly discovered evidence. The investigator's fraud isn't new enough. It happened in 1994. I found out in 2001. Filed in 2003. They said I waited too long. Too long. I waited too long. 38 years in here, and they tell me about waiting too long. You've heard my case now. The receipt, the fraud, the kerosene heater. I'm asking you to do what 9 courts wouldn't do. Look at it, just look at it, and tell me it makes sense. You know what the worst part is? It ain't the cell, it ain't the food, it ain't even the appeals or the courts or the lawyers who don't call back. It's the mornings. Every morning, I wake up and for about half a second, I don't know where I am. And in that half second, I'm home. I can smell the coffee. I can hear Lorraine humming in the kitchen. She used to hum church songs while she cooked. Amazing Grace. Every morning, off key. Didn't matter. It was the most beautiful sound in the world. And then I open my eyes, and she's gone. And I'm here, and it starts again. I loved that woman. I loved her in that way where you don't even think about it. It's just there, like breathing. She was the first thing I thought about in the morning and the last thing I thought about at night. And now they got me in here saying I'm the one that I would burn her, that I would burn my Lorraine. I didn't do it. Sometimes I almost wish I had, because at least then this would make sense. At least then there'd be a reason I'm here, a reason my boys don't talk to me, a reason I never saw my granddaughters' faces. But there ain't no reason, there ain't no sense. It's just a fire, a bad report, a tired lawyer, and 38 years. I'm 81. I'm fixing to die in here. And the only thing I want, the only thing, is for somebody to test that house again. Send a real investigator, a real one. Not Gerald Tunney, not a man who lied for a living. I want somebody to stand in front of my boys and say, your daddy didn't do this. That's all. That's all I've ever wanted.